WCW Great American Bash 2000. What happens when a wrestling company is on life support, owned by a corporation that doesn't even want it, and Vince Russo is allowed to write a pay-per-view like a fever dream on Red Bull? You get WCW's Great American Bash 2000, a show so chaotic it makes a backyard wrestling DVD look like WrestleMania X7. Strap in, people, we're going back to June 11th, 2000, the night where the only thing greater than the American Bash was the size of the creative disaster. And let me be clear, if you're expecting classic Southern wrestling, proud Americana, and coherent storylines, you're going to be more disappointed than Buff Bagwell's acting coach. This isn't just a wrestling show, it's a car crash, narrated by Tony Schiavone slowly losing the will to live. Let's go. Let's set the scene. It's the year 2000. Y2K didn't end the world, but WCW is doing its damnedest best to try. Nitro's in free fall, Vince Russo and Eric Bischoff are back running the Asylum, and WCW titles are changing hands more often than Jeff Hardy changes hair color. This pay-per-view came from Baltimore, Maryland, the spiritual home of wrestling, and also the spiritual home of fans yelling, "What is this?" for 3 straight hours. It's so bad, guys. At this point in WCW's life cycle, things had gone from weird to full-blown experimental theater. Everyone was turning heel. David Arquette had already been world champion, and creative meetings sounded like rejected Mad Libs. I imagine one went like, "Okay, hear me out. Sting gets set on fire, and Jarrett uses a guitar filled with blood. Let's wrap it in Americana and call it a bash." But let's dive into this wonderful, horrible mess. It starts bad right off the get-go, guys. Match number 1, Lieutenant Loco versus Disco Inferno. So we open with Lieutenant Loco, better known as Chavo Guerrero with a military gimmick, defending the Cruiserweight title against Disco Inferno. And yes, the guy looks like your uncle at a wedding after too much Fireball. It's not a bad match in terms of wrestling, honestly. The Cruiserweights were the last thing WCW hadn't completely ruined yet, but give it a week. Chavo wins, and somehow the crowd still has hope. Bless them. And Disco Inferno, by the way, was still out here thinking he was a serious contender. And you know what? That kind of confidence should be bottled and sold. He hits a swinging neckbreaker and acts like he just pinned Hogan at the Silverdome. There's interference from the Misfits in action and the Filthy Animals, which was WCW's way of saying, "We have no idea what to do with our mid-card, so let's give everyone gimmicks and matching shirts." The match ends with Chavo getting the win, but the real winner, the ring bell guy who only had to sit through 7 minutes of this circus. Match number 2, Chronic versus the Mamalukes. Next up, the Mamalukes, a team that screams, "We watched The Sopranos once," take on Chronic. If you don't remember Chronic, just imagine if the APA had more weed references and less charisma. It's a brawl. There are weapons. There's shouting. Chronic wins, and we all lose about 10 minutes of our lives we're never getting back. This match looks like someone mashed a fight scene from Walker, Texas Ranger into a parking lot backstage segment. Chronic comes out like they're auditioning for a reboot of Road Warriors on Parade. And the Mamalukes, bless them, are doing their best impression of Italian stereotypes written by someone who's only seen the Olive Garden menu. It ends in a glorified brawl that would have made more sense if it had just cut to a Papa John's commercial in the middle. Chronic wins with their finisher, which I think was called the High Times, which also describes the creative team's mental state during this entire event. And with that, we move on to match number 3, Mike Awesome versus DDP in an ambulance match. Now we're cooking with insanity. It's Mike Awesome, the fat chick thriller himself, versus DDP in an ambulance match, because why not? Awesome Awesome was originally brought in as a monster. By this point, he's hauling overweight women in carts and driving ambulances like he's in Grand Theft Auto, Florida. This guy could go, but WCW treated him like a punchline. But DDP, ever the consummate pro, takes a beating, does the diamond cutter out of nowhere, and works the crowd. DDP looks to have the match won, but Canyon interferes and does a diamond cutter to him off the stage, allowing Awesome to pick up the victory. Eric Bischoff also interfered, but it was so boring and inconsequential that I didn't even include it here. Match number 4, G.I. Bro versus Shawn Stasiak in a boot camp match. Oh my god, it's so tiring, guys. Even just reading through it. Then we get G.I. Bro, who you probably know as Booker T, and a gimmick Vince Russo probably thought up in the time it takes to microwave soup. He's facing Shawn, the perfect Stasiak, who was never perfect but always tried. Booker tries here, he really does, but the kind of gimmick is dead on arrival, and this match is just kind of there. G.I. Bro wins and thankfully drops the gimmick not long after. Stasiak was basically Mr. Perfect Light at this point, like ordering Henning on Wish. He flexes, he poses, he's got some athleticism, but he never really escapes the black hole that was WCW mid-card booking. Meanwhile, Booker T is walking through this match like a man who knows he's above the material. It's like watching Denzel Washington act in a school play. He wins with a scissor kick, the crowd pops, and we all hope he does get out of this gimmick alive. Spoiler, he does. Thank wrestling gods. Oh my god, guys, we're only on match number 5. Match number 5. Shane Douglas versus The Wall in a tables match. Shane Douglas versus The Wall. This feud was so hot, it could have cooked a Hot Pocket halfway through. Douglas wins mercifully after interference and general confusion. The crowd is starting to boo and we're not even halfway through. I'm not saying things are getting bad, but even Tony Schiavone sounds like he's considering quitting mid-show. The Wall, or as I call him, that guy in sunglasses who appeared in every 2000 Nitro Brawl, looked like a biker pulled from a meth convention. Shane Douglas still cutting ECW Forever promos even though he was now in WCW's Bermuda Triangle of careers. This match basically had as much flow as a TikTok rap battle between boomers. It ends with cheap shots, chair usage, and Shane Douglas looking like he just paid $12.99 for a win at Chuck E. Cheese. Oh god, guys. Only gets worse from here. Match number 6, Scott Steiner versus Rick Steiner and Tank Abbott in a handicap asylum match. And now we get the asylum match. No, not the TNA one, and definitely not a match that made sense. This is WCW's version of putting 3 large angry men inside what looks like a hanging dog kennel and telling them to fight for the US title, brother. Scott Steiner is locked in there with his brother Rick and Tank Abbott, a former UFC guy who once threatened to kill someone on live TV and somehow still wasn't the most unhinged person in the match. This whole thing lasts less than 4 minutes, which is probably the ideal runtime for a match that looks like a deleted scene from Mad Max Bunkhouse Edition. There's yelling, swinging fists, and a metal cage shaped like a birdcage from hell. Somehow, Steiner survives both men and wins, because WCW logic, when in doubt, push the guy with the loudest biceps and a pipe-wielding girlfriend. Match number 7, Hulk Hogan vs. Billy Kidman. Yes, Hulk Hogan vs. Billy Kidman is a main event feud in WCW in 2000. Let that sink in. It's a, quote, retirement match here for Hogan. Spoiler, it meant nothing. He gets help from Torrie Wilson and Horace Hogan because WCW was allergic to pushing young talent without involving 3 relatives and a valet. Hogan squashes Kidman like it's 1986, brother, and people wonder why the company died. Here's the thing, Kidman could go. He was fast, athletic, and cool, but putting him in the ring with Hogan was like casting Daniel Day-Lewis to co-star with the sock puppet. Hogan no-sells everything. Kidman bumps like his rent depends on it, which it kind of did. Torrie Wilson low blows Kidman, Horace Hogan somehow gets involved like the ghost of NWO past, and Hogan wins with a leg drop to absolutely no one's surprise. This match had all the suspense of a Hallmark movie marathon. And remember, this was billed as a retirement match. But it's WCW, so retirement means maybe take a week off and show up again in red and black with 0 explanation. Next up, match number 8, Ric Flair vs. David Flair in a match that is 90% midlife crisis and 10% actual wrestling. There's a stipulation involving Vince Russo in a straitjacket, and by this point nobody even knows what the rules are. Rick beats David, gets stripped down to his boxers again, and Russo interferes because of course he does. The highlight, a fan sign that says, "Please hire better writers." Crowd is officially done. Now let's unpack this. Ric Flair, one of the greatest wrestlers of all time, is in a match with his own son, who wrestles like he's being controlled by a drunk player in WWE 2K glitch mode. David Flair's moves look like he's imitating wrestling from memory after watching one match on mute. The whole angle is built around Rick trying to teach his son a lesson, which turns into Russo trying to humiliate Rick, which turns into Rick getting stripped for the 3rd time in 6 months. I don't know who had more screen time in their underwear in 2000, Ric Flair or Val Venus. Russo's interference ends the match in a pile of confusion. It's not heat, it's not storytelling, it's just a creative tornado of dads, nepotism, and pantsless legends. Oh my god, guys, there's still more to go. Match number 9, Vampiro vs. Sting in a Human Torch match. Now this is where the acid kicks in. It's Vampiro vs. Sting in a Human Torch match. You might not have heard of one before, and there's a reason for that. Yes, the goal here is to set your opponent on fire, just like the Inferno match in WWF, but a lot worse. Family entertainment. They brawl to the top of the Titantron-like structure, and then a stunt double dressed as Sting gets set ablaze and flails off like he's auditioning for The Mummy Returns. It's so obviously fake, it might as well have aired on Sci-Fi. Sting burns, but of course he's fine the next night, because fire's only fatal in non-wrestling universes. To be clear, this wasn't a fun, campy fire moment like Kane throwing a fireball. This was full on someone might have committed a felony territory. The Human Torch match sounds cool until you realize it's 2 guys throwing light punches in the dark on a scaffold while trying not to fall off before the cue. And when Sting goes up in flames, or rather stunt double Steve in a bad Sting shirt, the most obvious dummy switch this side of a high school magic trick. The flames are so fake, the pyrotechnics guy probably filed a complaint. And Vampiro celebrates like he's just won the Intergalactic Championship of Mortal Kombat. I mean, it looks terrible, and then they re-show it in like 20 different ways from different angles, and why didn't they just turn the lights down so it would be darker and you wouldn't see that it was obviously a crash pad and a dummy. Well, not a dummy, but a stunt double. So, anyway, the crowd reaction is a mixture of, ooh, and wait, did we just see someone die? Followed by a collective shrug. Classic WCW. And in any sane universe, that probably would have ended the show since the guy was literally just lit on fire and thrown off of a stage. But no, we have one more match here. Match number 10, Jeff Jarrett vs. Kevin Nash for the WCW World title. Vince Russo's hanging around this one like the world's worst wedding crasher, by the way, so that's important to note. Interference in this match? Check. A swerve? Check. A ref bump? Double check. Fake blood? Absolutely. Somewhere in here, Nash actually wrestles a little. Jarrett retains, but the match is so overbooked it feels like watching someone play 4D chess with jelly beans. Jarrett comes out looking like a cross between a country music villain and a car dealership manager who just found out his ex works for WWE. Nash is in a minimum effort, maximum paycheck mode, which honestly, respect. This match, if you can call it that, is one long string of guitar shots, referee confusion, and Russo yelling from the outside like a dad who just found out his kid scratched the SUV. At one point, there's a blood capsule spot so cartoonishly fake, it makes Sharknado look like Citizen Kane. I mean, Russo throws everything at this match except logic. Jarrett retains in the end, but it's less a victory and more a mercy killing. This wasn't about wrestling, it was about how much chaos you could cram into 15 minutes before the ring collapsed. Oh god, guys, thank god it's done. Watching this show was just, it was horrible. Wrap up. Great American Bash is like a bad acid trip wrapped in a steel cage. It's messy, overbooked, and full of bad decisions, but there's a weird charm to it, to how completely unhinged it is. If you like wrestling for great matches, you definitely want to skip this, but if you want to watch a company combust in real time while wearing sunglasses at night, then this is essential viewing. This show is WCW in 2000 in a nutshell. Over the top, bizarre, and desperately trying to stay relevant by throwing fire, blood, and swerve after swerve at the wall. Most of it doesn't stick, but the spectacle here, oh, it's unforgettable. Let's not forget, this was less than a year before WCW got bought out, and looking at this show, it's like watching someone throw a house party after they've already sold the furniture and lit the bathroom on fire. Entertaining? Kinda. Sustainable? Absolutely not. In conclusion, Great American Bash 2000 is not a good wrestling show, but it is a perfect time capsule of everything WCW was doing wrong at once. So if you love absurdity, if you want to hate watch something, if you love chaos, if you love watching a wrestling promotion try to reinvent the wheel by lighting it on fire and throwing it off the stage, this one's for you. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, and comment your favorite WCW moment that made you question reality. And remember, friends don't let friends write storylines while drinking Four Loko. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time.